Bonnie Lipton smiled as she drove her BMW down the Atlanta highway, anticipating getting home a few hours later than planned. She blamed Atlanta's notorious traffic, but Nick's delayed departure had turned out to be a blessing. Nearly a decade younger than Bonnie, Nick was an excellent lover, handsome, intelligent, charming, and quick to recover. Bonnie's thoughts then drifted to her husband, Ron, who at 44 lacked Nick's stamina for a satisfying intimate life. Though Ron relied on experience and familiarity with Bonnie's body, returning to him after being with Nick brought her comfort. She realized she had the best of both worlds, smiling even wider as she drove away from Atlanta. As her thoughts of Nick faded, Bonnie focused on Ron and her daughter, Jessica, her true loves. Bonnie longed to spend time with them, and with her desires satisfied, she better understood their moods. On her way home, she planned to be patient and caring with Ron, recognizing him as a wonderful man and an exceptional husband. Their daughter Jessica was athletic, intelligent, and had numerous friends at school and in sports. It wasn't unusual for 2 or 3 of her friends to stay over on weekends. Bonnie enjoyed their company and felt that they looked up to her as a role model. She always made sure to be well-dressed and presentable, holding a prominent position at an architectural firm. Both she and Ron were well-respected, individually and as a couple. Ron was always dedicated to attending Jessica's school events despite his busy schedule managing the family's successful construction company. Bonnie adored sitting next to Ron while they watched their daughter participate in activities. She noticed that several other parents gave her furtive glances, but she also couldn't help but see how many mothers looked at Ron as if they were vultures, and he was the prey. Even when Bonnie sat beside him, these women often found opportunities to chat and flirt with him. Although her attractive husband never seemed to notice, Bonnie couldn't ignore it. After several hours on the road, Bonnie finally pulled into her garage, only to find her husband's truck missing, a sight that was both unexpected and unusual. Her mood shifted slightly. The least Ron could have done was be home to greet her after an exhausting business conference and a long drive back. The house felt eerily empty when Bonnie entered the master bedroom, and although she couldn't quite place it, a nauseating feeling settled within her. Lunchtime was approaching, and yet no one was home. With Thursday nearing and Ron's work obligations, as well as Jessica's school schedule, they should have been home soon. So, Bonnie unpacked before taking a shower, pondering Ron's strange absence. Bonnie remembered that her phone had been off since dinner the previous night. Lost in her thoughts during the drive home, she hadn't considered why no one had been calling her. Ron might have been upset that she hadn't called to thank him for the string of pearls he had given her the previous night, something she had completely forgotten about while caught up in other matters. As she dried her hair with a towel, she turned on her phone. Meanwhile, Ron was congratulating himself once again for executing a simple but brilliant plan to surprise and delight his wife. He had been aware of her scheduled conference in Atlanta for months. Bonnie attended it twice a year. Fortunately, this conference coincided with their 20th wedding anniversary. A few weeks earlier, Ron had been approached to build a large vacation home for a family in Atlanta. After completing the business side of the meeting and feeling at ease with the client, Boyd Drake, Ron shared an idea that had been lingering in his mind. On the 10th of next month, it's our anniversary. My wife will be attending a conference downtown, and I want to surprise her and her colleague with a nice dinner at a restaurant near her hotel. To make it even more special, I've bought her a pearl necklace that I want to present to her at the table. Let my daughter handle that for you, Boyd suggested. She's in college now and knows all the best places in town. She can make sure the necklace gets into your wife's hands. It seems like you're counting on luck for when your wife gets home, Boyd commented. Why don't you go to Atlanta with her and give it to her yourself? I've suggested it before, but Bonnie insists she's too busy to spend time with me. She'll probably dine late and return to the hotel to rest. Besides, I have commitments here, and traveling all that way just to be ignored seems a bit foolish, Ron reasoned. I have another suggestion, Ron proposed. How about I invite your daughter and her friend to dinner? If she agrees to sit at the table with Bonnie and send me a live video on Facebook, I'd really like to capture Bonnie's surprised expression when she opens the necklace box. I'll share my daughter's contact information with you so that you can communicate with her and coordinate everything, Boyd responded. I'm sure she'll be happy to help with this. Ron arranged for several pizzas to be delivered to his house for a party he organized to celebrate his 20th wedding anniversary. He extended invitations to his parents, Bonnie's parents, his brother and sister-in-law, and Bonnie's younger sister, who was divorced. Everyone was excited to witness Bonnie's reaction in real time when Ron surprised her with the anniversary gift. Ron's 16-year-old daughter, Jessica, was also present with several of her friends. Ron set everything up so that they could watch the video on the big screen TV. Boyd's daughter will sit discreetly near Bonnie and live-stream the video via Facebook Live, Ron explained with a cheerful smile. She's arranged for the waiter to deliver the wrapped gift after Bonnie and her colleague, Sue, order their meals. We'll get to see Bonnie's reaction live, Ron added with satisfaction. This will undoubtedly be our best anniversary yet, despite the distance. Let's make sure everything is perfect from our end. Feel free to comment, including compliments on how great the idea was. Who's that guy with Mom? Jessica asked and Bonnie appeared on screen holding hands with a handsome young man. Didn't you say she would be with Sue? I don't know him, Ron admitted. He seems to be a close friend. Bonnie's father responded with a grunt and a disapproving frown as the couple took their seats. Everyone watching on Ron's TV easily overheard the conversation. It's kind of your husband to invite me to dinner tonight, the unknown man commented with a smile. I'll do my best to make this anniversary unforgettable, at least for you. It'll be even better than your honeymoon. Then you'd better order a steak, Bonnie replied with a smile. You'll need the energy. My honeymoon was epic, that's true, the man teased. Did you have a lover back then, or did your husband manage to make it special? Ron did a great job, thanks for asking, Bonnie replied. You're the only lover I've had in the last 20 years, besides Ron, of course. Thankfully, he slowed down a bit. The good news is that you'll have a much better anniversary tonight than most women, the man added confidently. I'll make sure of it. Maybe we've seen enough, Bonnie's sister suggested nervously. This isn't fair. Bonnie has no idea that we're watching or listening. Why don't you turn it off? We'd miss Bonnie's reaction when she gets her necklace, Ron asked, determined but visibly flushed. Let's see how this plays out a little longer. As the couple placed their orders, everyone heard Bonnie address her companion as Nick after the waiter left with the menu. Another waiter arrived with an impeccably wrapped package. Look! He must have sent me an anniversary gift, Bonnie exclaimed excitedly as she unwrapped it. Isn't it beautiful? She asked, admiring the pearl necklace. Could you help me put it on? Of course, just lean forward, Nick replied, fastening the necklace carefully. Once done, he lightly brushed his hands over Bonnie's shoulders. Your husband is quite the romantic. You're lucky to have such a handsome man, commented an older woman at the next table. That's true on both counts, Nick smiled. She has a romantic husband and a handsome boyfriend. Bonnie shot a stern look at Nick, but the older woman just laughed at his comment. I gave you a pearl necklace last night that I think suited you much better than this one, Nick joked, leaning in to kiss Bonnie on the lips. That's the difference between a husband and a lover, Bonnie said with a seductive smile. Husbands give us jewelry, and lovers give us pleasure. Sorry, I can't continue, whispered the stunning redhead, likely Boyd's daughter, as she turned off her phone. I should have stopped this earlier, but I was so shocked that I froze. I'm really sorry it ended this way. I'll delete everything from my phone. I have to go. The TV screen went black, and a heavy silence filled the room. One of Jessica's friends finally broke the silence. It's getting late, we should go. See you at school tomorrow. I don't even know if I'll be there, Jessica responded, tears in her eyes. Dad, can I go home with my friends? I just need to be with them right now. Of course, sweetheart, I understand. We'll talk tomorrow. Drive safely, girls, Ron whispered, his throat dry. I have no words, Bonnie's mother began. I think we misunderstood what was happening. Bonnie loves you, Ron, and she's willing to do anything for Jessica. Please don't do anything rash. Ron's other guests echoed similar sentiments as they quietly discussed the situation. After a few minutes of calm conversation, Ron made a decision. I need time to think about everything. Please, find your way out and give me space to be alone and consider my options. Once everyone had left, Ron began packing his suitcase. Meanwhile, Bonnie was shocked by the avalanche of missed messages and calls she had received since turning off her phone the night before. As she read through the messages, her heart sank. Her sister and mother were demanding to know who Nick was and why she was so friendly with him. They accused her of breaking Ron's heart, and Jessica was clearly very upset. Her mother and sister had sent at least a dozen messages each. Bonnie checked for any messages from Ron but found none. How had her family discovered Nick? And how much did they really know? Where were Ron and Jessica? How could she handle the situation she found herself in? She needed to figure out exactly what Ron knew and what he only suspected. Bonnie realized she needed to reach out to her family to assess the gravity of the situation. Mom, it's me. I forgot I turned off my phone last night, Bonnie began as calmly as possible. I noticed you tried to contact me. Is something wrong? Only if you consider losing your husband, alienating and embarrassing your daughter, dishonoring your parents, and behaving promiscuously to be bad things. I suppose it doesn't bother you much, otherwise, you wouldn't be wearing a pearl necklace from your boyfriend, her mother retorted. Ron gave me a pearl necklace for our anniversary, Bonnie replied. Why does this bother you? Your father and I have seen enough old movies to understand what your boyfriend meant when he mentioned you wearing his pearl necklace, her mother responded. Mom, what makes you think I'd do something like that? Why do you think I have a boyfriend? Bonnie asked, a knot of fear forming in her stomach. Don't play with me, I'm not stupid, her mother snapped. Ron invited us to watch you open your anniversary gift at the restaurant where he had reserved a table for you and your colleague, Sue. We've seen this whole sad story. Your husband treats you like a queen, and you don't respect him. Husbands give us jewelry, and lovers give us pleasure, I believe you said. You heard me say that? Bonnie asked, shocked. How is that possible? Ron asked a friend's daughter to live stream it from her phone. He wanted us to see how happy you were with his gift. Then, we were all going to call you to congratulate you on your anniversary, her mother explained with sadness. It seems this might be your last anniversary, at least with Ron. Maybe you'll reunite with your favorite guy once things calm down. Mom, you know I love Ron. That other man means nothing to me, it was just something to pass the time. These conferences are getting so boring, Bonnie admitted. Oh, that changes everything, her mother replied sarcastically. Ron will feel much better knowing his wife wasn't entirely unfaithful and was only bored. I suppose you left your sense of responsibility at home? Mom, calling me names isn't going to help. How can I convince Ron that he's the only man I love? You haven't even convinced me, so I'd say you have some work to do, her mother replied, struggling to hold back tears. Seeing you with that man is the worst thing I've ever seen. I doubt Ron found it any easier. After the conversation with her mother, Bonnie reflected on her situation. Her entire family had witnessed and heard everything she and Nick had discussed at dinner the previous night. Remembering her conversation with Nick, Bonnie realized the seriousness of her predicament. She decided to call Jessica. Jessica, where are you? Bonnie inquired when Jessica answered the call. I'm with Morgan. She's trying to comfort me because my family is falling apart, Jessica responded. We're not falling apart. Please come home so we can talk about this. Where is your father? Bonnie asked, unsure. He's moved to a cabin by the lake, Jessica replied. I don't think he wants to see you. He was so happy last night when he invited everyone to see you open your gift. You practically broke his heart when you showed up with your lover instead of Sue. Please come home, Bonnie implored, trying to think of what to say to Ron to earn his forgiveness. After finishing her conversation with Jessica, Bonnie began to search the house. She noticed that Ron's laptop and several file folders were missing from his office. The closet in their bedroom was completely empty. It felt as hollow as her mother's words had. Bonnie fought back tears as she wandered aimlessly around the house, noticing the missing items. Ron hadn't even taken a single photograph. This realization was particularly disheartening. Looking for a distraction from her crumbling marriage, Bonnie started preparing dinner for Jessica. When Jessica arrived home, Bonnie had managed to prepare a modest meal. Jessica was quiet, only speaking when Bonnie asked her direct questions, and even then, her answers were brief. Bonnie admitted to herself that Jessica had valid reasons to be angry with her, but she hoped that, over time, the hostility would at least lessen, if not disappear entirely. At dawn the next day, Bonnie arrived at the cabin by the lake to find Ron slumped awkwardly and passed out on the small sofa, with several empty beer cans scattered on the floor. Ron, honey, we need to talk. Wake up, please, Bonnie urged softly. Ron slowly opened his eyes and groaned. He got up gradually and, without a word, headed to the bathroom. While waiting for him to return, Bonnie decided to make coffee. A few minutes later, Ron, refreshed from his shower, joined her in the kitchen, where Bonnie served him a cup of coffee. She hoped Ron would start the difficult conversation, but that hope soon faded. It was clear that Ron had no intention of addressing the matter. Ron, I'm sorry for what happened. I love the pearls, it was a wonderful gift, and I will always treasure it. It's a shame I didn't know you were sharing everything with your family. It would have been helpful if you had told me, Bonnie expressed. Go to hell, Ron replied furiously, angered by Bonnie's attempt to portray him as the one at fault. His response shocked and hurt Bonnie. Throughout their marriage, Ron had never spoken to her disrespectfully. This clear change in his behavior was a sign of the deep pain she had caused him. That won't solve anything, Bonnie responded calmly. Tell me how I can fix this. You're the only man I've ever loved, and that hasn't changed. Together, we can work through this. Then what exactly is the problem you want to fix? Ron asked, still calm. The problem is that I surprised you with an anniversary gift at a nice restaurant, where I reserved a table for you and a friend. My client's daughter agreed to live stream your reaction. I mistakenly assumed you'd appreciate the gesture. Tell me what the problem is, so I can understand. You know what the problem is, Bonnie insisted. Last night, you saw me with Nick at the restaurant. I've had dinner with others before, but why do you think this is an issue? You know perfectly well why this is a problem. You told me you'd be dining with Sue, but you were with Nick instead. You heard our conversation and found out that we've been together. That's the issue we need to address. So the problem is that I, along with your entire family, overheard your conversation, or is it the fact that you had a relationship with another man? Ron asked. The problem lies in my behavior, Bonnie admitted, blushing, realizing she couldn't stay on the offensive in her current situation. You were only trying to be kind to me on our anniversary. You did nothing wrong. Good, we're making progress, Ron replied. Now, explain why you went behind my back. How long has this been going on, and with how many men? He pressed. Let's not resort to vulgarity or insults, Bonnie responded, emotionally overwhelmed. Jessica is undoubtedly your daughter. Nick has been my only companion since we started seeing each other. Your comments about my faithfulness and Jessica's parentage were unnecessarily hurtful. I'm struggling to understand your reasoning, Ron replied. You admit to cheating on me, but you insist there's a limit to how unfaithful you've been. You want me to be polite and understanding, even naive, when you claim to belong to only one man? Are you proud of your limited infidelity? And for the record, how long have you been involved with the charming Nick? How often? Conveniently, you failed to mention these details when denying being promiscuous. This marks the third conference where we've been, together, Bonnie finally confessed, crying as she grasped the depth of Ron's anger and humiliation. Apart from you, he's the only one I've been with since we got married 20 years ago. It happened 6 times in total. And you deeply regret it? You're suggesting that a young man like Nick was only capable of being with you once per night? He never stayed with you more than that. What does it matter? Bonnie asked, disheartened. We probably did it 3 times each night. Now, the big question, Ron announced. Why did you get involved with another man? Was our closeness so undervalued, so mundane, so unsatisfying that you sought a younger and more satisfying lover? Absolutely not. I was bored, and he pursued me relentlessly. I turned out to be weak. This isn't about you or our relationship. It's my own vanity, maybe a midlife crisis. He means nothing to me, I swear. It's obvious you got involved with a man who didn't matter, Ron reiterated. Did you get involved with Mr. Jenkins, the guy from down the street with those ridiculous shirts? Of course not. I barely know him, and I find him repulsive. Then he doesn't matter to you? Ron pressed. You've just admitted you get involved with men you don't love and who don't matter to you. Jenkins fits that description. So why didn't you get involved with him? I didn't say I get involved with just any man who doesn't matter to me, Bonnie clarified, distressed. I got involved with Nick because he's attractive, polite, and successful. He pursued me. So, you're suggesting that you'll only be unfaithful with attractive and successful men who pursue you? Aside from these few individuals, you're a faithful wife. If you don't love the men you're involved with, does that mean you don't love me? No, Bonnie objected, visibly embarrassed. I'm telling you I made a terrible mistake, and it won't happen again. I love you, not Nick. How can I be sure of that? Ron asked softly. You made vows at our wedding and promised countless times over the years to be faithful to me. You're a beautiful woman, handsome and successful men will always pursue you. I can't trust you. I can't even offer you the great love you seem to enjoy so much. Don't think like that, Ron. I love being with you. He's different, he made me feel special, Bonnie responded. What drew you to Nick and kept you with him? Ron inquired gently. I felt dirty, not like a mother or wife. It was the taboo that kept me hooked, not love. What did you do with him, and how? Ron asked quietly. Why does that matter if I only love you? Bonnie asked, visibly ashamed. I have a few things to think about. You're standing here, telling me you love me, not him, but you got involved physically with him. I'm struggling to understand why you were willing to do more for someone who doesn't mean anything to you than for the person you claim to love, Ron reasoned. You haven't asked me for more in a long time. I wasn't against it. I thought you had lost interest, Bonnie defended herself, aware of how weak her words sounded. Yeah, what husband would want that from his wife? Especially when she gives it away so freely. You assured me on our honeymoon that I'd be the only man you'd ever love, Ron recalled. You and that handsome guy must have had a lot of fun at my expense. That's not true. He never mentioned your name. I wouldn't have tolerated it, Bonnie insisted. It seems you've forgotten that I listened to several minutes of your conversation. This idiot insulted me multiple times, and you supported him. Do you remember when he implied he'd give you a better 20th anniversary than most wives get? You didn't object, did you? Why are we wasting time here? Ron demanded suddenly. You found someone new. I've accepted it. Maybe you should, too. Why pretend you want to stay married? It's clear you didn't enjoy being my wife, and let's not even talk about intimacy. You're beautiful, successful, and intelligent, and I bring nothing to the table. It was only a matter of time before you found something better. Congratulations, you found it. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. Ron, we can't let this conversation end like this, Bonnie cried. We need to talk everything through and find our way back. You can have your lawyer talk to mine. It's over between us, Bonnie. I'm filing for divorce. You've left me no other choice, Ron declared firmly. Bonnie went to work but found herself in the break room with an angry Sue. Why did Ron ask me if I went with you to Atlanta for a conference? You know I stopped attending after you started spending your nights with Romeo from the Chicago office. You won't use me as a cover for your infidelity. Ron contacted you. What did you say? I had to admit the truth. I skipped the last 2 conferences. I thought you had informed him that we were sharing a room and attending together, Sue regretted. That's no longer a problem. Ron found out everything on this trip. I think he's going to divorce me, Bonnie confessed. What did you expect? Sue demanded. No decent man could tolerate this level of disrespect. You were too blind and self-centered to even consider that Ron might discover this. I didn't betray you. If that's what you're thinking, Sue. I owe you an apology. I betrayed your trust. I'm sorry I didn't listen to your advice. I don't deserve someone like Ron. After learning about Bonnie's infidelity, Ron took a day off from work. He was determined to move all his belongings to the lake house before Bonnie returned home. He didn't want to hear her justifications or excuses for cheating on him. Although he feared life without Bonnie, he knew he could never forgive her for her blatant disregard for his feelings and her indifference to loyalty and respect. Her unexpected visit the following morning only emphasized the vast emotional gap between them. She didn't offer any words that could ease his pain or make forgiveness possible for her betrayal. He scheduled an appointment with a lawyer for the next day. The following day, as he prepared to leave the office for a meeting with a divorce lawyer, Ron received a new email from Bonnie. He debated whether to read it or delete it but finally chose to open it. True to her style, Bonnie addressed the issue directly in her message. Ron felt only despair as he read her confession and plea for forgiveness. It was typical of her to take responsibility for her actions after reflecting on the situation. She was a strong woman, demanding the best from herself and others, but Ron, feeling empty, saw no reason to reply. When Bonnie arrived at Ron's house by the lake, her only source of information about Ron was their daughter, Jessica. On Friday afternoon, Jessica informed Bonnie that she would spend the weekend at her father's cabin, and Ron would bring her home on Sunday night. Bonnie realized that this would likely become the pattern of her future life. She spent a miserable weekend contemplating how she had ruined her life and whether it was even possible to fix it. She had irreparably damaged her once happy marriage. When Jessica returned home on Sunday night, she seemed distant. Dad has decided to divorce you, she said. He can't stay with someone who has lost all respect for him. I saw him cry several times this weekend. I've never seen him like that before. Do you realize how much you've hurt him? Maybe your boyfriend is better than Dad. He's not my boyfriend, and he can't compare to your father, Bonnie responded, stunned. It was a huge mistake, and I deeply regret it. Your father is the best man I've ever known. Please forgive both him and me for everything. This isn't the first time you've been with that guy, is it? You've been lying to us for years, haven't you? Jessica replied. Bonnie realized it was time to stop deceiving her family. I was with him at 2 conferences before the last one. It was a mistake, and I'm sorry, she confessed. A mistake. That's putting it lightly, Mom, Jessica said angrily. You betrayed Dad in the worst possible way. Didn't you promise to be faithful when you married him? Were you secretly hoping he wouldn't find out? I know you're angry with me, but not as angry as I am with myself, Bonnie admitted sadly. Your dad is a wonderful man and a great father. I know what I did doesn't change my opinion of him. I acted foolishly, just as you said, Jessica replied before retreating to her room. Normalcy returned between Bonnie and her coworker Janet, but communication with Jessica became sparse. Bonnie found solace in her work, which was unaffected except for the cold treatment she received from Sue. She attended Jessica's school events, generally alone, unless her mother accompanied her. This was the only time she saw Ron, who kept his distance noticeably, and other parents took note. News of their impending divorce spread quickly through the community, leading to crude remarks and insinuations directed at Bonnie. Meanwhile, Ron buried himself in his business, finding some redemption amid the chaos. Ironically, Bonnie would receive half of the business, despite Ron's lawyer advising him to minimize Bonnie's share. Ron refused, citing her valuable contributions during the company's early struggles. He insisted on fairness, refusing to deny Bonnie her rightful portion. Bonnie was surprised when her lawyer explained Ron's decision to give her half of his stake in the business. During a previous financial crisis, the company had been sold to Ron's best friend, Dan, who became a silent partner, leaving Bonnie now owning half. Ron found himself in a precarious position. "Tell Ron this is too generous," Bonnie urged her lawyer. "He's the one who dedicated his time and effort to the business. If he insists on giving me a share, propose a fraction of what we own. He should retain control to avoid future disputes." Ron stood firm. When spring came and the snow melted, Bonnie found herself single again and owner of 1/3 of Lipton Enterprises. Ron cut all ties with her, even refusing to speak over the phone. Jessica expressed her desire to spend the summer between her junior and senior year with her father at the lake cabin. Although Bonnie recognized this as another form of punishment from Jessica, she accepted that she had earned her daughter's disdain. Ron, for his part, was delighted. He made plans to nearly double the size of the cabin. As the owner of a construction company, he effortlessly completed the expansion by the end of July. It was now a 3-bedroom lakeside house, each bedroom with its own bathroom and picturesque views of the lake. The house had been completely modernized and was exceptionally comfortable. During the first weekend in August, Ron hosted an open house for his friends and neighbors at the lake, inviting many of Jessica's friends. Among them was the older cousin of one of the girls, who caught Ron's attention. She had striking blonde hair, accentuated by a modest 2-piece swimsuit. Throughout the day, Ron couldn't help but notice that she seemed to gravitate toward him, laughing at his jokes and flirting whenever she had the chance. "So, Dad, are you enjoying the little bikini party?" Jessica teased one day when they were alone in the kitchen. "Absolutely not," Ron protested. "She can't be more than 25, and I haven't even thought about dating again." "She's 27 and seems quite interested in you," Jessica replied with a sly smile. "She's been asking about your marital status, age, occupation, basically, all the things women want to know about potential husbands." "I met her today," Ron replied. "Don't even mention marriage to me. I tried it once, and that was enough. I'm not suggesting anything beyond her apparent interest. I wouldn't mind if you dated her. She's pretty, kind, and you might need someone to help you move on from Mom. Patty doesn't seem in any rush to get married. I think she's focused on her career right now, but that doesn't mean she's not open to male companionship." "Thanks for the heads up," Ron joked with his daughter. "This girl is far too attractive to be interested in an old guy like me, but I appreciate your confidence. It means a lot to me." Bonnie's firm occupied the top 2 floors of an office building in the financial district. At the end of the same block was a popular Italian bistro where she often had lunch with colleagues on Thursdays. Their lunches were informal, and they frequently saw familiar faces dining at the same time. Bonnie and her colleagues had made friends with employees from several other companies in the building. One afternoon, the bistro was unusually crowded, and Bonnie's group couldn't get a table. An employee from Benenson Advertising, located on the 2nd floor of Bonnie's building, invited them to join at a spacious table, which they accepted immediately. After everyone introduced themselves, the conversation began. One woman from the advertising team stood out for her attractiveness and charm. Bonnie found herself enjoying the young woman's sense of humor while the other women teased her playfully. "Not all of us wake up with a rich guy in a big house," joked Mary, whom Bonnie recognized. "It must be nice to greet the morning sun reflecting off the lake." "Absolutely," the young woman agreed. "Especially when you have a handsome man waking you up gently. Getting out of bed becomes a challenge." "If that's the guy who picked you up after work on Thursday, I can understand why it might be hard," another woman commented. "He seems a little older than you, but he's clearly in good shape and has a full head of hair." "Not bad at all." "He's all that and more," the young woman chimed in with a wide smile. "He's a great guy and an incredible partner." To Bonnie's dismay, her friend immediately broached the subject she wanted to avoid. "You're not talking about Ron Lipton, are you?" "You know Ron?" the young beauty asked, adding, "You have to admit, he's quite the catch." "He's a fantastic guy, but he used to be Bonnie's husband," her colleague revealed. "I think we should change the subject." "Don't exaggerate," Bonnie replied, leaning toward the young woman and offering her hand. "I'm Bonnie Lipton." "I didn't catch your name." "Patty Lau's son," the young woman responded. "Ron introduced me. I thought his ex-wife was impressive, but I figured he was blinded by love. Turns out, he didn't do you justice. I hope you don't mind that I'm now living with Ron." "I certainly don't blame you or him for that," Bonnie replied sincerely. "You're a young, beautiful woman with a fantastic figure. I can understand why Ron would be attracted to you. I wonder why Jessica never mentioned you." "I can't speak for Jessica, but I must say, you've raised her well. She's intelligent, considerate, and as charming as her mother. I always enjoy her visits," Patty concluded. Later that night, Bonnie brought up the topic with Jessica during dinner. "Why didn't you tell me your father has a beautiful girlfriend who's moved in with him? I thought you'd mention something like that." "Honestly, Mom, I didn't want to upset you. I know how you feel about Dad," Jessica explained. "I'm still mad about what happened between the two of you, but I didn't want to cause you more pain because of your mistakes. Patty is actually good for Dad. He seems genuinely happy again. That may surprise you, but I'm glad to hear that Ron is happy. He's a wonderful person and deserves to be with someone who cares about him, even if it's not me. I don't think she's madly in love with Dad, but she really likes him. She's made it clear that her career is her priority right now. She's focused on advancing in marketing over the next few years. Are you considering dating again, Mom? Are you still in contact with your conference boyfriend? Do you think you could reconcile with him?" Jessica asked. "I wouldn't consider Nick as a potential partner," Bonnie admitted. "He's shallow, a little rude, self-centered, and vain. I never saw our interactions as more than a distraction, but it became a nightmare. Although he was aware of my actions, I can't blame him for my own weakness." "Are you interested in anyone else?" Jessica inquired. "You're still attractive. I've noticed how some parents and teachers look at you and make an effort to be courteous during school events. To be honest, I feel like Ron has set the bar too high for other men," Bonnie replied with a sad smile. "The reasons for our divorce are well known in the community. It garners sympathy for your father and makes men see me as an easy target. Nick probably found it easy, but I won't make that mistake again. I simply can't understand how I could betray your father when I loved him so much." "It surprised me too," Jessica responded. "He always treated you with love and respect. Something must have gone wrong." "I've asked myself the same question," Bonnie admitted. "I think I started taking your father for granted. I knew he loved me, and I was too sure of that love. Somehow, this made me consider being with another man. Maybe because I felt safe, knowing I had a reliable partner at home. Ron was my rock. Foolishly, I thought he would always be there. I thought I could stray a little, and he wouldn't notice. And yet, my devoted husband would still be waiting at home. I hope you find a man like Ron when you're ready to settle down and learn from my mistakes. Never take more than you give in a relationship. Be faithful, committed, and honest. If you're considering something that could harm your relationship, talk to your spouse about it. I've shown you what happens when you lie and cheat. From time to time, Bonnie ran into Patty during lunch. She was surprised by how much she enjoyed Patty's company but also felt embarrassed by her eagerness to hear any news about Ron. Jessica refrained from revealing much about her father, recognizing that certain personal details were off-limits, even for her mother. Meanwhile, Patty spoke openly about Ron with her friends. "It's obvious you still care about Ron," Patty observed during a lunchtime conversation with Bonnie. "He never speaks ill of you, but it's clear you hurt him deeply. I'm not here to judge, but personally, I couldn't imagine betraying someone I'm in a relationship with. It's hard to reconcile that with the person I see and hear from you, someone who seems to love and respect him. Take that into account when the initial passion fades, and you're faced with the realities of daily life," Bonnie replied. "I lost my way and paid the price. Love isn't always about excitement and luxury. Sometimes it's about mundane decisions, like when to clean the septic tank or what color to paint the house. Everything becomes routine, but that's normal. Ron is a straightforward businessman, a loyal friend, and an exceptional father. I'll always love him, but I betrayed him in the worst way possible. I learned my lesson, maybe a little too late. Last night, I informed Ron that I accepted a job offer in Seattle and will be leaving in 2 weeks. It's a fantastic opportunity for me. I've always prioritized my career, but I could see the news affected him," Patty shared. "I'm telling you this so you understand what he's going through and maybe offer support if he feels down. He really is a wonderful man. He may not be my life partner, but I'm sure he'll miss you a lot," Bonnie commented. "Ron doesn't make decisions lightly. If he invited you to live with him, it says a lot about how he values you as a person, not just for your looks. Still, he's resilient. I tested his strength, but he came out stronger. He's made significant progress," Bonnie added with a slight smile. "He'll miss you, but he's a great catch, and I doubt his bed will stay empty for long." "Yes, that's why I'm sharing this information with you first," Patty replied with her own smile. "What you choose to do with it is entirely up to you." Barely a week later, Ron's closest friend and silent partner, Dan, invited Bonnie to lunch at the bistro. Despite the crowded space, they managed to secure a small table in the corner. After exchanging greetings and formalities, Dan proceeded to explain the purpose of their meeting. "Are you aware of the plot of land Ron bought on Route 21 near the river? I have a buyer willing to pay almost $2 million for it. Ron practically got it for a bargain, so the profit margin would be immense. Your share, as 1/3 owner, would amount to more than $500,000, Dan explained. Ron mentioned that the land could be a valuable investment that would probably appreciate significantly in the future. Do you think he's considering selling it?" Bonnie asked, curious about her involvement in the discussion. "That's the problem," Dan replied. "He's considering offering it on a long-term lease instead. He wants to ensure the contract includes provisions for his company to build facilities tailored to the tenant's business needs." "That sounds like Ron," Bonnie admitted with a smile, recognizing his business savvy and foresight. "I'm sure he's done the calculations and believes his strategy will generate higher returns in the long run. What's the concern? My inclination is to take the quick profit by selling the land. Planning a decade or more ahead is commendable, but I'm more inclined to secure the funds now. You and I each own 1/3 of the company, so together, we could pressure Ron to accept the offer and then split our share of the profits. Ron won't lose out, he'd get $500,000 in cash to smooth over any potential friction," Dan proposed. As Bonnie listened to Dan's suggestion, she felt her frustration rise. "Are you suggesting I betray Ron's trust? Do you think money is more valuable to me than preserving Ron's trust, as you seem to imply?" "Let me clarify something," Ron would see this as a complete and utter betrayal, both by his ex-wife and his closest friend. This would be the final blow for him, Bonnie replied firmly. Worse than his wife having an affair with some young guy at a conference. Dan joked. You're his ex-wife for a reason. You already betrayed him, he divorced you for your infidelity. This is an opportunity to seek a little retribution while also securing a substantial sum of money, Dan reasoned. I recognize that I betrayed Ron, and I take full responsibility, Bonnie replied, barely containing her anger. I acted foolishly and selfishly, but I never intended to hurt him. He deserves better than us, and he deserves business partners far more trustworthy than either of us could ever be. That's precisely why I will never betray him again. I'd rather lose every penny than cause Ron more pain. I've already proven I was a terrible wife, and now you've shown yourself to be a disloyal friend and partner. Ron will have control over my stake in the company as long as I live. In fact, I'll draft a new will to ensure Ron inherits my share when I pass away. You should have more faith in his business acumen. With a surge of anger, Bonnie stood up, leaving money on the table to cover her half-eaten lunch, and looked Dan in the eye. Please refrain from trying to steal from me again. Nearly a month later, Bonnie opened the door to find Ron standing on the porch. She was surprised by the sight. Ron had intentionally avoided Bonnie since the day of the disastrous conference. Ron, please come in. Everything's fine. Cassie just left a moment ago if you're looking for her, Bonnie said, feeling a wave of emotion from Ron's unexpected visit. I'm available to talk if you have a moment. I'm available to talk if you have a moment, Bonnie quickly repeated, adding, I just made coffee. Why don't we sit in the kitchen? Thanks for seeing me so quickly, Ron said, grabbing his cup of coffee. You always made excellent coffee. I didn't even know how to make it when we got married. You didn't marry me for my coffee-making skills, Bonnie recalled with a smile. It took me a while to learn. I didn't marry you for your coffee-making skills, Ron replied. You had other qualities I found much more attractive. I don't remember you calling them qualities, Bonnie joked, but I do remember you calling them something else on a few occasions. Yeah, you brought out the big guns, and I was defenseless, Ron admitted. Patty must have you wrapped around her finger or some other part of her, Bonnie teased. She's quite charming. I appreciate how kind you've been to her. She holds you in high regard. Her opinion of you is one of the reasons I'm here. A couple of weeks ago, one of her friends overheard your conversation with Dan during lunch. Patty mentioned it before heading west. She believes your dedication and integrity have been outstanding. I have to agree, despite how I treated you during the divorce. You flat out rejected Dan. Many women whose husbands divorced them so quickly would have sought revenge or, at the very least, compensation. I would never do that to you, Ron. I understand how diligently you work on your projects and how much they mean to you. I also know you'll ensure this property generates much more revenue than Dan anticipates. He underestimates you, Bonnie concluded. I appreciate your vote of confidence. Patty helped me accept the fact that you were my partner, even though I often ran the business as if it were mine alone. I want to hear your thoughts and what you'd like to do, Ron declared. If you're inclined to sell the property and split the profits, I'm on board. Dan has been pushing for it to be sold, Ron revealed. I suspect he's short on money. He believes selling the land will net us each $500,000 without cutting into his share. Is this something you're interested in as well? I think you have plans for this property that will benefit the company and earn goodwill from the community, Bonnie replied with evident pride. You've never been one to chase quick profits. I've always known your goal is to improve the area while generating solid returns. Do you have something in mind for this site? She asked. I've been negotiating a long-term lease with the General Hospital to build an emergency care facility here, Ron admitted. It won't generate as much profit as the luxury condo project Dan is pushing for, but it will still be lucrative and come with a guaranteed contract. Plus, it will create jobs and foster goodwill. I had a feeling that might be the case, Bonnie replied with a touch of satisfaction. You're not just a savvy businessman, you also invest in the community. That's what sets you apart from people like Dan. Dan focuses on quick profits, but I don't share that mentality. From what I've seen, he presented his idea to you, and you rejected it. I have complete trust in you, Ron. You've never given me a reason not to trust your judgment. I will support your business decisions no matter what you decide, Bonnie assured. It might sound strange since you have every reason not to trust me, but it's true. I've been thinking about how Dan is meddling in your business. It crossed my mind that we should buy out his share. If he's short on money, he might consider a reasonable offer. It would benefit both parties, he'd be happy, and you'd have full control of your business, Bonnie reasoned. I've thought about it, but I don't have the capital to do it, Ron admitted. We could sell this house, Bonnie proposed. I can find a nice 2-bedroom apartment for Jessica and me. Over the years, we've built up quite a bit of equity. The house is almost paid off, and you've made improvements. It should provide enough to buy Dan's share. Now that we're divorced, this is your house. Are you willing to sell it and invest in the business? Ron asked, incredulous. I can't promise when the urgent care center deal will close. I can't guarantee you'll get your investment back soon, or at all. Those sound like excuses, Bonnie joked. Remember, I was married to you for 20 years. You'll recover it all with interest. And if, for some reason, it doesn't work out, that's okay. I owe you, Ron. Money will never make up for my betrayal, but it will keep you away from Dan. I'll accept this if you move back to the lake cabin or move in with Jessica and me, Ron proposed. We'll get you your own room and bathroom quickly. It's very well equipped. I don't think that's feasible, Bonnie replied sadly. It's a personal matter, not to mention the dating scene and all the drama that would bring you. I didn't consider your social life, Ron admitted. Of course, you wouldn't want to bring a gentleman over with your ex-husband next door, especially not Nick. That would be awkward. I'm not dating anyone, and I don't plan to start, Bonnie replied. I stopped attending conferences, and I haven't spoken to Nick since that disastrous trip. You'd be the one affected. No woman would want to spend the night with you if your ex-wife is right next door. With me around, it's very unlikely you'd find someone willing to move in with you, though I wouldn't completely rule it out. I've seen women fall for you. I divorced you for your infidelity and then moved Patty in with me, Ron commented rhetorically. Wasn't my behavior a bad example for Jessica? My only justification is that I was feeling depressed and alone. Another man took my wife, and my self-esteem hit rock bottom. Patty managed to restore it. I'm sorry for damaging your self-esteem. I wish it hadn't happened, but I don't blame you for falling in love with Patty. She's an exceptional woman. You're single, and you're free to pursue any relationship, Bonnie added. I don't think I've properly atoned for my actions. You weren't the cause of this. It's all my fault. I made a huge mistake, and I deeply regret the pain and problems I caused you. You really hurt me, Bonnie. I was never unfaithful. I lived for you and Jessica. I went from having everything to feeling like a complete failure, Ron confessed. Patty helped me realize that, while I wasn't a perfect husband, I wasn't the reason for your infidelity. If you weren't happy with our marriage or our closeness, you could have told me. I would have tried to improve things if I had known. I was just naive, not unhappy, Ron continued. You were an excellent husband, a wonderful father to Jessica, and an amazing partner, Bonnie acknowledged. I lost my way, and I deserve to be unhappy. It might sound strange, but being unhappy brings me some comfort. I feel like I'm paying for my mistakes. Maybe you could at least come and see the lake cabin, Ron suggested. I'd like to show it to you and get your opinion. I've incorporated some of the ideas we discussed over the years into the renovation. I think you'll like them. Jessica has a volleyball match in 2 hours. Can we postpone this? Bonnie asked. Let's take a look before the match. We can go together, Ron suggested. Then I'll bring you back here. Aren't you worried that people will assume we're together again if we go as a couple? You usually keep your distance from me, Bonnie pointed out. Yes, I've been a bit harsh. But in my defense, you ruined my life and our marriage. You couldn't expect me to be kind to you, Ron argued. Actually, you've been much kinder to me than I would have been to you if the roles were reversed, Bonnie admitted. Your settlement offer was extremely generous, and we both know it. It seems your kindness is paying off. I can't believe you're willing to do this, Ron grumbled. We're considering selling the house to buy Dan's share. I still find it hard to believe. Honestly, Ron, you can take whatever you want from me. You've always been honest with me. I know you won't hurt me, even though I deserve it. Let me give you a tour of the lake cabin, Ron suggested, intending to change the subject and calm his emotions. As Ron guided Bonnie through the house, she admired the renovations. You've done an incredible job. Jessica's room is spacious, and having her own bathroom is every teenager's dream, she commented. When Ron showed Bonnie the second bedroom, she felt it was time to address the elephant in the room. It's a lovely room with another fantastic bathroom, but I can't stay here, Ron. It would be too painful for me to see you every day and be reminded of what I've lost. We'll sell the house and rent an apartment. I'll be fine. We need to leave soon for Jessica's match, Bonnie added. Let me show you the master bedroom, Ron insisted. It's larger than the others. I'm sure you'll love it. It's beautiful. You've done an excellent job, as always, Bonnie praised, examining the room. That's why your business thrives, you have an eye for details. Would you stay with me and Jessica if you had this room? Ron asked abruptly. I'd still have to see you every day, and I don't think I could handle that, Bonnie replied sadly. I didn't mean it would be exclusively yours, Ron explained anxiously. I thought maybe we could share it. Bonnie raised an eyebrow, scrutinizing Ron's expression. Are you asking to share your bed? Since the day I found out about your infidelity and I left, I've felt terrible. I miss you so much it hurts sometimes. You made a big mistake, but I slept with Patty for months. That softened the blow a bit, but it didn't erase it. I wonder if we can get past all of this and try to be together again. I won't be your doormat, Bonnie asserted. If you want to punish me more, I won't do it. If I move in with you, I'll be completely faithful, and I expect the same from you, no more young women in your bed. It will be just me, or I'll leave in a heartbeat. I've worked hard to regain my self-respect, and I intend to keep it. I love you, Ron, but you have to be fully committed, or I'll walk away. Jessica was surprised when her parents walked into the gym holding hands. She ran over to them to speak privately. Mom, Dad, does this mean? Jessica started. Ron smiled and nodded before she could finish. Jessica hugged her mother tightly and whispered in her ear, Welcome home, Mom. I love you, but never cheat on Dad again. I have a friend with a single aunt who's even more beautiful than Patty.